What is going on, guys? This is the first time I'm doing this by myself, so you're going to have to bear with me here. But we had some exciting news come out today. It was, 2-3 days after the deadline, but we're going to talk Inter Miami. We haven't done enough of it yet with the 5 Reasons Football because we did splash out of the playoffs, but they released their roster updates. And look, there's a lot to talk about. 1 out of the 9 players in options got exercised. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the players they let go into free agency, everybody they declined, why they might have declined them. There might be some surprises. I'll tell you who I think the team is going to try and bring back, all of these kinds of things. But look, I'm going to bring up the roster. I'm going to put it right on the side for you guys, and we are going to get right into it. I'm going to talk about first the players that are under contract, what they've meant for the team, and things like that. But other than that, we're going to get into all of this good stuff. So let me pull this up here for you guys. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so there you go. It's right there on the side. Look, the players that are under contract, there's no surprises that they're not going to touch them. There's one new player who we acquired from loan, Heido Quinteros. He's on loan, but he won't be joining the team until sometime in January. Nothing big there. But when you look at the players that are under contract, you have Acosta, who we didn't get to see at all this year. The young keeper and calendar, we have Carranza, Chapman, Figal, LGP, Higuain, McCoon, who will not be a Fort Lauderdale CF player. He will be an Inter Miami CF player. That's something to note. Blaise Matuidi, Lewis Morgan, Dylan Nealis, the rookie, Pellegrini, Pizarro, Robinson, the other rookie from this year, Ben Sweat, Victor Ulloa. So, look, out of the 9 people here that had options, only one was exercised. Everybody else was declined. John McCarthy and not Louis Robles was exercised. Now, there's a lot of talk about this because in the beginning of the year, we saw good things from Luis Robles. And then when it came to the MLS's back tournament, everybody was like, okay, this guy's falling off. Now, I believe he's 37 years old, but he was our captain. And losing a captain is always something massive. And we did have captain issues after Robles was gone and broke his arm. It went from Higuain to Matuidi to Will Trapp, I believe. But there was never that real sense of leadership from the team that we got from Robles. But I guess, look, McDonough saw enough from McCarthy, the cap-wearing McCarthy, to say that, look, Robles, he was probably getting paid a decent amount of money, and because he is an MLS veteran. And now John McCarthy comes in after he's injured and put in quite the good performance. You can look at the FC Cincinnati game. Or no, was it the Orlando game where he had the crazy double save and then the LGP header to win it 2-1, which was massive when you look at the playoff run there. We needed that win at home. And the double save was crucial. John McCarthy made a lot of saves, double saves, everything here, but he doesn't bring the same leadership qualities that Luis Robles does. So that's something to look for. We have no idea who's going to be the captain going into next year, but I believe that John McCarthy should be the man going forward. We have a guy from UCLA in Drake Calendar who has not played yet, but he is a good, aspiring young keeper who can back up behind him. I believe they'll probably try and sign somebody when it comes to free agency to be a third keeper because you don't really know with Calendar yet. He is still young, and McCarthy was a backup himself. So if you can bring somebody to compete with McCarthy on an every week basis, that's fine too. It just depends on Alonso and McDonough and Beckham and whoever's involved there and what they want to do. Now, for the other people that were declined, Mikey Ambrose, Juan Agudelo, Jerome Kiesewetter, David Norman Jr., Alvis Powell, Andres Reyes, and Denzo Ulis. Now, we did not see David Norman or Denzo Ulis play in an Inter Miami uniform this year. So David Norman Jr., he came from a Canadian club, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He is a little bit younger, but he was a number 10, and we were kind of, we have Pizarro at that spot. Sad for him, wish him all the best, but I don't know if they will be in talks with him going forward. Denzo Ulis was a center back or a defender from Haiti, also on the younger side in his younger years. Wish him the best going forward as well, but in all reality, I guess just didn't fit what Alonso wanted. And a lot of these guys, like I said earlier, if you look at my Twitter, you can follow it, or you can follow the 5 Reasons Football Twitter. we talk a lot on there, but I said a lot of these players came in before Alonso was the manager. I believe David Norman was one of those players. I don't know about Ulis. I think he was kind of later on, but David Norman probably doesn't fit what Alonso wants to do. And he was going to be the squad rotation player anyway. And I think they need to upgrade the depth when it comes to this squad and building it. And the thing is in MLS is that a lot of teams are going to have these roster turnovers from year in and year out. It's always going to happen. That's just how the league is. It's not like any other league in the world. It doesn't make sense. A lot of MLS rules and roster regulations and how the league works when it comes to free agency does not make sense. So it is going to be weird to see some of this stuff. If you follow MLS for a long time, you'll get it. But if you're a South Florida soccer fan who has not been involved with MLS and you're just following Inter Miami because it's your local team and you follow someone like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, and you're looking at this stuff and you're like, what's going on? Yes, there's this whole free agency American kind of thing that they try and bring in that doesn't really fit the soccer system, but it's what we're going to have to get used to. Now, moving on from Norman and Denzo, we're going to go to I'm going to go with Jerome Kiesewetter here. Now, Jerome Kiesewetter was somebody I was very high on to begin the year because there is a personal connection there, I won't lie. I did meet him when he was out in El Paso playing for Locomotive. Even though he was injured half the year, he became top scorer for El Paso, I should say. And that was with the injury. He was dealing with an injury, and he still came back and was everything for El Paso. So when I found out he got signed with Inter Miami, I was like, look, this guy could end up being a starting striker. Now, of course, we bring in Higuain, so you don't even think about that there. But when you have like Julian Carranza and Juan Agudelo and Robbie Robinson to think about as a starting striker, I believed that Jerome Kiesewetter could be the guy. Ultimately, it wasn't the case. He got sent down to Fort Lauderdale CF, only made 1 or 2 appearances. I think he ended up getting a goal, but they had one of the Ricky Lopez Espen who was balling out for Fort Lauderdale and was the top goal scorer there in USL League One for quite some time. So he didn't really get his chance to shine in South Florida. I wish all the best to him. I sent him a message. But he might not be in the plans. He could be. I think he could be as a good squad piece. I don't think he ever played bad when he got subbed on a couple of times this year, but all the best to Jerome Kiesewetter as well. Now we're going to get into more. We're going to get into these players that played a lot more than the people I talked about other than Luis Robles. Mikey Ambrose. Now, the left back position this year was interesting. It was interesting because we had Ben Sweat for quite some time, but then you also had Ambrose come in when we saw a 5 at the back formation. And beginning of the year, Ben Sweat plays at a center back and a 3-back. And Mikey Ambrose played out wide. And there were just a couple of things that Diego Alonso was trying, and it didn't really work. Now, Mikey Ambrose had an amazing goal that really lifted us to this playoff spot in the FC Cincinnati game at Inter Miami CF Stadium. But in all reality, he didn't show enough. And as much as that may be unfair because he did help us get there, one goal is not going to do everything for you. And I believe that McDonough is going to look at this depth at the wing back position specifically because there isn't enough depth there. Alvis Powell, I'll go on to him now, was another player that they had brought in early on, I think through the expansion draft, if I'm not mistaken. And it was somebody that I kind of was excited about, but I knew Dylan Nealis was coming in as well as a right back. Alvis Powell, the Jamaican international, was coming from FC Cincinnati. We had just picked him up, and his first performance in the Inter Miami CF shirt was a word I like to use, shambolic. And it was something that you do not want to see from your defender. Somehow, some way, you can... We only escaped LA with a 1-goal deficit, and that was not thanks to Alvis Powell. It should have been a lot more. He made a lot of mistakes in that game, but ever since then, he did not get a start until later on in the year when we had injuries at the center back position and the right back position. We had red card suspensions, yellow card suspensions. We were dealt with that all year. And Alvis Powell is not a guy that I see coming back to this team. I may be mistaken, but he did not show enough. And I think Inter Miami is going to have to do a lot of looking around at what other teams have done around the league and seeing who's been dropped, who's in free agency, and things like that. So We will get into that as well. Speaking of these yellow card and red card suspensions, and in defense, you can look at Andres Reyes here. Look, Andres Reyes is very young, and he's on a loan, which is important to note. But Andres Reyes is on a loan, and they did not exercise any option to buy at the end of the season. Yeah, I agree. Andres has a great point here. Alvis Powell did fall off since Portland. I believe I don't know if he was on an MLS Cup winning side with Portland. You might have to fact check me on that. But once he moved on to FC Cincinnati and he got picked through their expansion draft and then we picked him up, he couldn't get up back on track. And I didn't see much from him, especially I know Manny's here in the background, but especially in the playoff game. And he crossing the ball into the midfield, which kind of led to the goal. He's going to give you that face. Everybody's going to give you that face. It was sad. But yeah, so back to Andres Reyes, a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old center back. I think he might have had his birthday. From Colombia. And look, he had to get put in right away. And that wasn't something I don't think he expected. I don't think that any other Inter Miami fan expected. But Andres Reyes was a very shaky defender. As much quality as he did prove to have, and I think he does have a lot of potential as a center back. I know that the club for sure is in talks with his former club or the club he's on loan from to bring him back, but the asking price at the original time of bringing him was too high, or it was maybe the right amount, but after his performances this season, they want to get that talking price down because they don't want to sign him for that much money because it's not worth that much money. I think he would be a really good squad rotation center back. I think that going forward, you might see a lot more of a LGP Figal center back pairing, and then you'll have Nealis on the right. Now, Nealis coming into his own, he's going to be here again as a right back. He was a rookie last year. He kind of got thrown in as well. We thought Alvis Powell was going to be the starter. But I think we'll see a lot more of Figal and LGP centrally. I think that there's a lot to be worked on there. And there's a lot that Inter Miami has to do and add on defensively because it was at times very, very hard to watch. And especially, both of those guys like to get forward. I think they need to become a lot more disciplined. And that's something Alonso is going to have to enact in the offseason and tell these guys, look, we cannot have the same defense as last year. And I think Figal and LGP are talented enough to do that. And that's why I don't think I see Reyes as a starter going forward, at least not for a couple of years. But he is a really good player, even though it was shaky at times and he was very prone to fouling and getting yellow cards. That's why I use him as a rotational player. You need to bring on a center back who needs to make a couple fouls late in games to stop the ball. That's your guy. So Reyes, look for him to come back. I'll try and update you guys as much as I can with news about the talks from Inter Miami and his former club about the loan and the exercise to buy option. But as of now, he is technically going to go back to his former club. But I know for sure that Inter Miami is talking with that club to get that talking price down, and bring him back. Lastly here, Juan Agudelo. Now, listen, we did not see 2013 Juan Agudelo. We did not see the Juan Agudelo, the MLS All-Star Juan Agudelo. And we won't see that maybe for quite some time. I don't think we'll see it ever again. And there was a lot left to be desired from Juan Agudelo this season. He moved from a left winger to a striker. He did not show enough for me. I was not impressed by his performances this season. He kind of let me down early on. I think his first appearance was in the DC United game. He came on as a sub for Robbie Robinson, and after Robbie Robinson got hurt in that game, and did not show enough for me to say I want this guy to be an Inter Miami player. He did bag a couple of goals. He bagged a couple of goals at pretty crucial times as well. But his effort going forward, the press that Diego Alonso likes to do, if you have a guy who's slacking in a press, you're going to get beat. And Juan Agudelo showed that time and time again. There's not enough from him. And I think I don't know what his contract was. And this year, MLS wasn't as transparent as they usually are. The Players Association wasn't as transparent as they usually are when it comes to the player contracts. because of COVID and the whole situation there and the layoffs that the league had. And it was hard to get this communication across from what the players are actually making. But I don't know what Juan Agudelo wants. And I think that maybe in the contract that he had, it was probably too much to go forward. I don't know if they bring Juan Agudelo back. I don't know if someone like Olivier Giroud from Chelsea is going to come in after scoring a hat trick against, or more than a hat trick, 4 goals against Sevilla the other day. But there were talks about that as well. I think there's other options in attacking roles that you can get other than Juan Agudelo for the price that he was at. And that's probably where the club is going to lean to. I could be totally wrong here. I could be totally wrong, and maybe they're just declining his contract and trying to restructure a new one for a lesser price because of his performances this year. But in my opinion, I don't think that they should bring Juan Agudelo back. But I have no intel, I have no information from the club or anybody inside of the club that with the wherewithal to have the knowledge of what's going on with him. But I personally say I wouldn't expect him to be back in an Inter Miami uniform, but he could. You never know. The last couple of things here, we have some players out of contract. AJ De La Garza, Federico Higuain, Brek Shea, and Will Trapp. Out of contract means, how do I say this? There was no team or player option, and their contract was up, and they did not sign an extension throughout the season, so they become what would be a free agent, per se. I do believe that the team is trying to bring back Federico Higuain for sure. I think I saw the reports there from Franco Panizzo of SBI Soccer. So you can look on his Twitter page because he has a lot of information and intel on the club. And I did see that he posted today that they're trying to get his contract down because he was on quite a hefty deal when he was playing with DC because he was an important player at the time. But he came here to play with his brother. Didn't have the impact because he never started a game, only came on 70 minutes plus. It wasn't enough to say, look, here's the money. So they never extended him, but I know they're going to rework a deal. They're trying to rework a deal with Federico Higuain so he can keep on playing with his brother. And that's something that you guys can look forward to. He's a great midfield player. He's a great creator. And hopefully he kind of starts going forward. I'm going to read this here from Anthony. Robles did pretty well. Okay. The thing is with Courtois and Buffon, I don't know if Courtois won't be for sale. Buffon, I don't know what's going on with Buffon these days, but he's a little old for me, and I think that's exactly what we saw with Robles. He's a little old. Robles is 37 and just had a fractured arm. It's a sad way to go, but that's probably why he was not offered. His offer was declined. That's fine. I'm fine with McCarthy as well. Like I said in the beginning, he showed a lot of good performances. He does not have the leadership qualities that Luis Robles does, but he did pick up a little bit. I think I did see all the way through the end of the season, especially in the Cincinnati game. He was very vocal. And again, he's been a career backup goalkeeper. He does not have the experience that he had this year. He has had it before, but it wasn't like it this year, especially, thinking, oh, you're going to be a backup all year. And that's always a tough situation for a goalkeeper, especially with the pressure on the position. But if you start John McCarthy next year from day one, I'm not going to be upset with it at all. I just want to see a little bit more leadership qualities out of him because you always want to see that in a goalkeeper. And that's what we want to see from him going forward. Where was I? So we talked about Federico Higuain. I'm going to go with AJ De La Garza here. I think this is probably somebody they want to bring back on a lesser money deal. They do not want to give him the money that he was getting before. AJ De La Garza proved to be vital in defense later on in the season. He did not play for a very long time, but when it came down late into the season, De La Garza was very solid defensively. And honestly, I can't remember any true mistakes that he made or vital mistakes that he made. And he kind of filled in when we had these injuries and suspensions defensively, and he did fine, whether it be at the right back position or at the center back position. And I know he can also play on the left side too. So AJ De La Garza is someone I think that they should try and bring back. I don't know. He's another one of these guys. I don't know exactly what's going on with him in the club, but if in my honest opinion, I think that the club will try and bring him back on a lower salary. And because he is getting older, he's aging, but he is an MLS veteran. He was very outspoken when it came to the communication issues at the club. And I think that's what we need from some of our players. A lot of the players in the club in general There was not a lot of communication. There was not a lot of reports coming out about what we wanted to hear. It was hard to extract information, and it took losing a playoff game 3-0 and the frustration from that for someone like AJ De La Garza to come out and say that there were issues in the communication aspect, and they had to better that. So honestly, that's the player I want playing for my club. That's the player who's going to play for the badge, and that's the player you want to play for Inter Miami CF or any team you support. So I do think they should try and bring AJ De La Garza back. If you could lower the salary because he is aging, whether it be a rotational player, he might have to start from day one, depending on who you can sign. That's okay with me. So before I get to the fan favorite Breck Shea, I'm going to talk about Will Trapp here. Will Trapp is still technically in the prime of his career. Will Trapp lost his starting position to Blaise Matuidi, and then he ended up taking over Victor Ulloa as the partner for Blaise Matuidi in the midfield, and probably did a lot better than Ulloa did in his couple of stints with Matuidi. Will Trapp, look, I don't know. I agree, Andres. I agree. I don't know if the club liked it as much, but I completely agree. Anyway, Will Trapp is on the radar for the U.S. men's national team. He is a leader in the midfield. Was the quality there all season? Not necessarily. Defensively is where the issue is for me. And I say this because if you look at our show when I talked with Lemon City Live on Tuesday, I don't know how you pair someone like Will Trapp or Victor Ulloa with a Blaise Matuidi who wants to get forward at this point in his career. Alonso wants Blaise Matuidi to get forward, and that's fine. Blaise Matuidi is fully capable of doing that, but you need to have someone who's able to protect him and back him up and drop between the defenders. Victor Ulloa and Will Trapp are not those kinds of players. I don't think they fit the 4-2-3-1 system that Alonso wants. And Will Trapp's asking price, because he is on the national team radar, that international, the rep, I would say, it's going to be too high for what he can actually provide, especially with Inter Miami and him already being here. I don't think that it's someone that you try to sign unless you can get a really good deal for it. I think you try and bring in another midfielder who can pair better with Blaise Matuidi. And if Victor Ulloa's salary is less than Will Trapp's, just use him for the time being, or use him as the backup for whoever you bring in. That's just how it's got to be. I think Will Trapp is a great player. I think he just doesn't fit the system here in South Florida. And then lastly, Breck Shea. Breck Shea was a fan favorite, and he signed with Fort Lauderdale CF in like February. We had no idea what that meant, and then at some point, he got called up to the first team, made a couple starts, scored a couple goals, scored a winner against Atlanta after being a substitute. Absolute fan favorite Breck Shea was. Now, I don't know exactly what his contract was. It could not have been high because technically he was signing for a USL League One side. And I don't know if they ever tried to work out an extension with him, but he is very injury prone, dealt with injuries throughout the season. He might have actually caught COVID during the season, so that may be a little unfair, but he was dealing with other injuries as well. So Breck Shea has the potential to come back to this team. And I think he can also still be an impactful player for this team, whether it be as a left back or a left winger, or if Alonso wants to play this crazy five at the back, he could play the left wing back and do fine there. He's really good going forward. He's really good dropping back. And Breck Shea, I think if they can get him for a reasonable price, I think that is going to be someone that they want to bring back. I don't know if Alonso will want to bring him back, but I feel like McDonough will. So I think that's something that those two are going to debate about, because I don't know if Alonso liked playing Breck Shea that much, because we did expect to see him more in times when he seemed to be in form, and we didn't see it from Alonso. We didn't see him being chosen, and then he got, he was dealing with injuries, probably got COVID. We didn't see enough for it to be, impactful and really. I mean, Breck Shea made great impacts, and I just wanted to see more. It's kind of disappointing, but fans. Even I'm sure analysts and me included, as a fan and as a reporter, I wanted to see more of Breck Shea, but we didn't get to. Hopefully he resigns, and that's it from there. Look, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to wrap this up here shortly. I haven't done enough research as to what other clubs have done just yet. I don't know exactly what other clubs are doing. I know someone who recently, the only person I've seen for sure that has been released by a club is Dom Dwyer, but I don't think Dom Dwyer is going to be an Inter Miami player. But every single team, I think up to this point in MLS, other than teams that are still in the playoffs, have released these things. We will go into this. We will go into this maybe next week, maybe not, depending on Champions League and the U.S. men's national team coverage. But make sure to follow 5 Reasons Football on Twitter because I will tweet my thoughts on it. You can follow my Twitter as well. It's just my name at Austin Robillard. Make sure to check out all of that out because I am very vocal there as well as I am here on these YouTube videos. So go check those out. Check out everybody here. Manny, the other 5 random football guys. We have Royal, Martin, Kai, Paul, and our guy Andres too, who did a great job with the logo. Check everybody out. I will try and link them after this video on my Twitter and put all their ats there. There we go, right there on the bottom. That's why we have the greatest producer in town, baby. That's why we have the greatest. So anyway, look, that's it for that. We are going to wrap up here. Those are my thoughts on the players and the options and what I think Inter Miami should do, why they did do some of these things. And if we get more news, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we will see a lot more news around December 13th. There is a trade window, like a couple hours, I think, where players are able to be traded. And then we have on the 14th, Inter Miami has to announce who they are protecting and not protecting for the expansion draft because there are new teams coming to the league. I believe it's Austin FC. So we will have to find out who they are going to protect and who is available in the expansion draft. Somebody may get drafted on the 15th of December. We have no idea. And when the 16th starts, it is free agency. There's going to be a lot more news to come from there. And I think that's going to be it for our show. Thank you guys for listening and coming by. Make sure to check out 5 Reasons Football. Find everything down here. Follow all the guys. We do a ton of work. It's a new brand under the 5 Reasons Sports Network thing. And look, there's a lot of content to come. We're going to be talking Champions League, U.S. men's national team next week. I'll be there in the booth to give you my thoughts. And with that, I say goodbye and thank you. And keep up with us for more news. Have a good one.